Welcome to Chicago Bulls Chat with C-Red UK. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever or however you're listening, make sure to rate, review and subscribe. It helps us out and means you never miss another episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave some comments for us to get back to. And for all the C-Red UK action, check out the Discord channel and across the socials. Now, over to your hosts, Matt Hearn and Neil Dunn.
Welcome back. I'm Matt, and well, feels weird saying as usual, joined by Neil, because if you've been watching our YouTube, we've been going it alone the last couple of times. So, But for tonight, I am joined by Neil. How are we doing, Neil?
I'm okay. How are you?
Tired, but you know, that's nothing new. Yeah, as I say, obviously last week we put out a couple of YouTube only videos. So if you haven't, go check them out. Give us a chance to catch up on some of the latest news and stuff like that. And whilst you're there, you might as well subscribe as well if you haven't already. But on to tonight's episode. We've got a little bit of news dropped just before we start recording. We're going to do some more of our grades from last season, and we're going to see the return of Matt Vs Neill, which I won last year. So
I'm looking for revenge.
Yeah, stay tuned for that one. So on to the news that broke just before we started, a few hours before we started recording. Alex Caruso been named to the NBA's all-defensive second team. And, I mean, he's got the credit he deserves from where he deserves it, but it's not gone down too well either, has it? In some cases.
Yeah, it's a strange one because, you know, fair play, he got it. They've credited him with all defensive team, but they changed it a little bit this year and they made it positionless. And by making it positionless, it seems to have squeezed him into the second team, whereas by rights he should really be in the first team. and the point I've kind of made to you earlier on is that kind of what's the point of giving him the Hustle Award, right? So he's credited with being the best hustle player on defense in the whole of the NBA, yet he's only good enough for the second team, all defensive. For me, it either discredits the all defensive or it discredits the Hustle Award, and I kind of think it's more the Hustle Award that it discredits more than anything else, to be honest.
Yeah, and obviously I did mention when he won that I thought it was a pointless award anyway. I mean, obviously we haven't had a chance to look back, but don't know how many previous Hustle Award winners would have made all defensive teams or first all defense team, whatever you want to think.
That's a fair question.
And I mean, Casey Johnson's put a piece out saying that he was actually better defensively this year than he was last year as well, and it makes a mockery of either the Hustle Award or the all defensive teams, and
yeah,
I mean, because obviously last year you had two guards, two wings, and a centre, and he got in as one of the guards. He was the top guard this time round as well. I think he was like 20-something points behind Anthony Davis for obviously getting into the first team. But, I mean, Caruso himself had something to say on it, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and get it up now.
Yeah, okay.
Pause.
The thing is, you could take it. You could take it as he's having a bit of a pop, or you could take it as in he's just being a bit tongue in cheek. But,
yeah. What is he's put a tweet out, obviously retweeting the NBA communications with the picture of him making second team, and he's put so all the guards ... got it, like a laughing, crying emoji face, hands up, fire. And I mean, you just have to go on Instagram and look at people's stories as well. Other players' stories. I mean, Terry Taylor, Bulls legend, he's put one on saying that 6 made, I can't remember the exact wording, but 6 made other players' life's hell. You know, and basically that is BS. That is only second team, and you know, you still got to credit him for being, well, technically one of the top 10 defensemen in the league, aren't you? But
yeah,
you know, I mean, it's a joke really that it only ever seems to be the big men that get the defensive player of the year. Did Marcus Smart win it the other year, didn't he? One of the first guards to do it in however many years. You know, they've got different jobs, aren't they? And that's why this all defensive team should be positions, because his job as a perimeter D man, he does also drop into the paint, but very rarely do you see somebody like Rudy Gobert come out and guard the perimeter. He's just there getting blocks, and you know. So to me, the guards do more than what the bigs do, in my opinion. So they deserve more recognition because, you know, was it the only player in the league, was it 100 blocks and 70 steals or something for Caruso? You know, I don't know how many blocks Gobert got, but I bet he didn't get 70 steals.
No.
You know, and, you know, so yeah, I've said for a long time, I think the awards, there's too many awards and they're not fairly judged either anymore, I don't think. You know, I dare say if Caruso was at another team, he would have been first team. These people that vote for it, you know, that constantly watch Lakers and other teams like that, you know, say if Caruso was back at Lakers, he'd have been first team. Because, well, Anthony Davis was in there, so.
Yeah. Well, like he said himself, you know, he knew he could allow players to drop back because he had a rim protector behind him, which he doesn't have now.
Yeah. Exactly. He's obviously doing more work in Chicago than I think he would on most teams, but
yeah,
you know, he doesn't get the credit. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't get the credit when the national media is not watching Chicago as much as they're watching other teams either. So,
right.
That's my sort of take on it. Have you got anything else on Caruso being robbed?
Yeah, it's just a pity that he didn't quite get the full recognition, and it is because of the positionless thing. That's what's really squeezed him out. But yeah, no, he deserved to be first team. I'm glad he still got second team. I'm not trying to take anything away in that respect, but I certainly do think that he should have been first team.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we graded him last week, and both kind of come to the conclusion that ultimately he's going to be traded, or should be traded. So
yeah, from a business sense,
yeah, let's see what happens there. So as I said at the start, we're going to carry on with the grades for some of the players for last season. We are working our way through them slowly. And the first one up, we're doing the 3Ds tonight. First one up is Demar DeRozan. Now, obviously, Demar did win our Series UK MVP. So, you know, it doesn't matter about being runner-up in the Clutch Award. He's got the recognition he deserves from us, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's all he needs, right?
I mean, I did mention it to him, but, you know, he just kind of brushed it off a little bit. He's too busy. Too busy with his new book coming out and stuff like that. So, obviously, we also do the Bull of the Game, and I think he finished second in that. But we started a new thing from March where we gave 3 points to the player that we thought was the best player on the court. Not just our opinion, few opinions on the Discord, and Demar absolutely demolished that, didn't he?
He did, yeah. ran away with it.
It'd been interesting to see what it'd have been like for the full season, but obviously we didn't do it for the full season. So obviously 79 games played, 24 points, 4.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1.1 steal. Led the league in minutes with 2,989, which was 37.8 minutes per game. And the result from Twitter was he got a grade A.
Mm-hmm.
Now, prediction-wise, I went with a B, you went with a B, and I ended up giving him A+, and you gave him an A.
Right.
And a few comments from Twitter. We've got ADog00, at ADog00 YouTube, B+, at Math Guitarist. Those who vote C don't know basketball. I'm assuming that's going off the poll. Gary, A, the marvellous display of leadership, mentorship, and IQ. Knew when to help teammates and to step up on the fourth when the king was needed. At Greg Popovich, he's a big Demar fan on Twitter. A, easily carried the team, especially in the clutch at age 34. Aussie Stew, the guy carried the team in the clutch, passed when someone else was hot in games, took over when needed, great vet on and off the court, deserved better help than our highest paid players gave. I do hope he returns. If not, has been one of the best Bulls to watch in the last 25 years. And Davey T, Wild Geordie, C. His clutch wasn't getting him in gear as much this season in the fourth. His defending had some solid moments, but his team play was for most parts disappointing and selfish. So many missed opportunities for certain teammates and wasted possessions. Yeah, quite a mixed bag from the Twitter poll. Obviously, we have spoke recently about whether he is one of the greatest Bulls or top 10 greatest Bulls. We both come to the opinion that he is. A few other people did. And obviously, he's one that is sort of causing a divided opinion on whether he comes back or not next season. Yeah. Obviously, he said that he wants to, which is what one of my video was about last week, from a comment he'd made on a podcast. Yeah.
Ironically, the Run It Back podcast.
Yeah. And at the minute, he's more valuable to us than he is to any other team in the NBA.
Yeah.
He's also more expensive to us than any other team in the NBA because, well, he's outplayed his contract that he's got. Yeah. And, I mean, if he goes somewhere else, he's going to probably get half the money, which could get a Bulls, maybe, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably is why he wants to come back to Chicago,
I'm sure it's a part of it anyway.
Yeah, and fair play to him if he can earn 40 million a year off Bulls or 16 million a year off Lakers to finish in the same position in the East or the West. Where are you going to go? Set 40 million to finish ninth in the East or 16 to finish ninth in the West.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, I do get people's opinion on not wanting him to come back.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would like to see him back.
Well, see, I think it comes down to the fact that, we both like him and we've got nothing against him. But at the same time, is it going to hinder or help the team if he stays? Yeah. That's the big question.
Yeah, and obviously AK has promised change, which obviously your video was about yesterday. The coaches change in coaching, assistant coaches. I mean, people want to see change on the playing roster, and they're getting impatient. And it's like, well, changing the coaches doesn't do anything. I want to see change on the playing roster. It's like, well, yeah, but you've got to wait because they can't do anything at the minute.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of looks like either DeRozan's coming back or Levine's coming back. They're both not going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Financially, it just can't happen. So who would you prefer to come back? Demar or Zach?
Well, you know the answer to that question. I'd certainly prefer to see Demar return than see Zach return. I just think Zach's time with the Bulls has come to an end. He's ready to leave. Most fans are ready to see him leave. And I think it's time. But Demar, I can see arguments for Demar to stay. I can't see so many arguments for Zach to stay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what have you got anything on how we played last season, Demar? I know you've obviously just given your grade.
Yeah, I mean, my grade was A, and I had written that how much of a leader he is for the team and how much he leads by example too. It's not just by talking to the players. He really shows the young guys what to do, speaks to them, encourages them, and that's great. And then of course he's got that father son relationship with DT, which has been great to watch develop. Um, I do still think that the chances are higher of him returning than they are of him not returning at this stage. But I mean, I like Demar. I like what he does. He's incredible from the mid range, as we know. He's upped his game slightly, if not massively, but he's upped his game certainly from the 3-point line. He's definitely upped his game on defense. He's tried a little bit more than he would have done in years past, and yeah, you've got to admire him. I mean, the guy is at the stage where most players start to show decline. And I don't think his decline. I've always said I thought his game would age gracefully anyway, but I don't think he's shown a massive decline in his game. If anything, he's pretty much plateaued.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, everyone's saying blow the team up, build around the young core, and blah blah blah. But you still need veteran presence.
Yeah.
And yeah, all right, you can move Demar, you can move Zach, whatever it happens to be, and you're going to end up getting some free agents in. But would they have the same veteran presence as Demar? Say you move Demar, you move Zach, and you get players like Kevin Herter, Harrison Barnes, whoever these players are that constantly get linked. That means Vooch is the veteran presence on the team. Would you trust Vooch to do as good a job as Demar does?
Absolutely not. Apart from one, he certainly doesn't lead with the same level of example as Demar does. But more so than that, you don't see Vooch talking to the young guys. You don't see him kind of corralling them or mentoring them at all. And that's what you lose with Demar. If you are going to bring in a veteran presence to try and fill that void for a cheaper salary, it still needs to be somebody who is prepared to step into that kind of a role as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, a few weeks now until, well, what is it, a couple of months now till free agency opens, and we start getting a few more ideas of what's going to happen, I think. And I think the Demar thing is just going to keep rumbling on, and same as a Zach. And like we said the other week, this is the time of the season we hate the most, where basketball's still going on, but Bulls are making coaching appointments because that's all we can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've got nothing else on Demar. I don't know if you have.
No, I'm good.
So next one, and it is that man right there, Ayo Dosunmu. 76 games, 12.2 points, 2.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and he was 40.3% from 3-point line. Finishes with a grade A from the Twitter poll. And this is where it looks a little bit interesting, because my predicted grade was C-/D+. Your predicted grade was a D. We both ended up giving him an A-.
Yeah.
So you can see where our head was at last season or before the season. And we weren't the only
Well, I
ones.
mean,
Bulls, Bulls
go on.
Nation had him going off to China and
Mhm.
all that. And we did say that when he signed his new deal, was it 7 million, that it's either going to look like an absolute steal or you've got somebody that you can possibly move if needed. And it was the first option, wasn't it? It was an absolute
Yeah,
steal.
definitely. Yeah.
I mean, he really come into his own in sort of second half of the season, I thought. Obviously, we know what he can do defensively, but I thought he played really well offensively this season. Still a bit of work on both ends needs to be done. But what was that, year 3? It was a real bounce back on it from year 2.
Yeah, definitely. He had this sophomore slump and then the year 3 bounce back. And that's exactly it. I mean, that was always what you expected with players, with rookies. They'd either have a reasonable rookie season or they'd bust. Then they'd have a sophomore slump. And then they'd come back in year 3 and start showing what kind of a player they really are. And that's exactly what we've had from Ayo. It's been that real typical ascension from year 1 to year 3.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously last season in particular, if he was coming off the bench, you couldn't wait for him to be on the court. And if he was starting, you were happy that he was starting. Didn't matter where he was, whether, like say, he was on the bench or starting.
Mm-hmm.
You just wanted to see him play because his transition offense was a lot better.
Yes.
Obviously, I asked you about what it was like in person when you went to watch against Knicks, and you said it was fast.
He is fast.
And he kind of not necessarily perfected it, but he improved his end product as well, didn't he?
Yeah, his finishing is much better.
We saw it a lot last season, or year 2 for him, where he'd get out in transition, he'd do a layup, and it'd come off the glass, off the rim, whatever. This season, it tended to look like it was going in.
Mm-hmm.
And then his 3-point shooting as well was just, he massively improved on that. Was the game, his career high, was it 5 that he ended up getting? Or 6, and he did it a couple of games in a row.
I can't remember actually exactly what it was. I remember him doing it a couple of games in a row anyway, yeah. That rings a bell.
And, I mean, there were games where he didn't hit any, and it was back to the old Ayo. But the fact that he kept the confidence there to keep shooting.
Yes.
And you kind of wanted the ball to go to him as well. And either him or Caruso, really, for their 3-point shot. Because neither of them before this season, you would have said that about. But they kind of ended up being our best 3-point shooters and also very good at the defensive end. So, few comments from Twitter. Farrah Monroe at SneakerDiva1922. I gave him a B. He improved by leaps and bounds this season, and I can see him having a Kobe jump next season. I'm really excited for his future, and defensively, he's a dog. I'm not surprised he's a product of CPS high school basketball. Mike Jabzinski, still can't say his name, at the only Jabs, I gave him a B, could have been an A though. Kane SZN at SX Suffix, B+. And I mean, the poll itself, he got 56% A, 43% B, and he got 1% D. So it's pretty obvious where people, put him really. That sort of A-/B kind of position, I think, which is kind of where we had him as a A-. So
yeah, exactly.
As Farrah said in the comments, excited to see what happens next season, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to give your narrative on him?
I just mentioned actually in mine that his extension was very good, and that it actually got a little bit lost in the Kobe White most improved talks. I thought even though Ayo's ascension was almost parallel to Kobe's, it kind of got a little bit lost in the fog of how great Kobe was doing and how enamored everybody had become with Kobe last season. But I mean, he went from literally being, like you say, nearly run out of town and sent off on a plane to China, to turning it around to becoming a player that people wanted to see on the floor. And you've got to take your hat off to him for that. That's impressive to be able to do that, and it shows real character for him and from a young lad. And I was really impressed with the way he carried himself. And like you say, on both ends of the floor as well, which is what we need more than anything else. He's fast and becoming more and more reliable as a shooter. And like you say, his finishing around the rim now has improved so much. Like the season before, he'd blow by people. I mean, never had a problem blowing by people. He was always fast on transition. But the problem was it rim out, or he'd miss the shot, and instead of being there for the rebound, he'd be 3 rows into the crowd because he'd have kept going under the basket. Whereas he seems to have controlled that a little bit more now. He's able to finish better, and even when he doesn't finish, he's kind of contorted himself in such a way that he can kind of step back onto the floor and still be part of the play. So yeah, absolutely, really enjoyed watching Ayo last year.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I'll say about him is that you can either take it as a negative or potential positive. Is he seems like a quiet member of the team, and if he can develop that sort of leadership that Kobe seemed to develop over the last year or two, you know, I think he'd be a hell of a player for us. And obviously, the fact that he's from Chicago, as long as he's playing well, the fans are going to love him. And before long, you're going to start putting him in things of who's the best Chicago player and stuff like that. And obviously, it's always going to be D-Rose, but you know, people are going to start putting him in them sort of conversations, aren't they? And you know, rightly so as well, because
not Pat Bev, no.
Well, that was one thing that Ayo showed Pat Bev last season, wasn't it? Whose city it actually is, where he put him on his ass. Yeah, so go away, Pat Bev.
Yeah.
Enjoy your band to start next season while you're recording your podcast about parking your car and reading the Bible. Anyway, moving on before I get too involved in Pav. Next player up, and the last one for today, Andre Drummond. 79 games played, 8.4 points, 9 rebounds, 0.5 assists, and he got 17.1 minutes per game. Finishes with a grade B. We both predicted that he'd get a B, and we both gave him a B.
Yeah.
Few comments from Twitter before we get into it. Hacky Moon, I gave him a D, and I want him off my team. I don't care if you get 30 rebounds a game. He's injured 2 rotation players while the Bulls were trying to make the playoffs because because he has no situational awareness. The needless fouls are one thing. This was the end for me. Davey T, again, he must have bought Billy a new cat. He got more minutes and made the most of them. Happy Bills and Bulls fan. I don't know if we can grade him if he never got the minutes that he deserved. LMAO. Troublemaker at Calvin Hobbs 69. I have to give him an A or B. He was a cheap signing and is one of the most dominant rebounders in the game. He isn't an outside shooter, and in today's game that isn't ideal, but his inside scoring is better than I knew it to be. He made poor choices at times, but brought it always. The poll itself, he ended up with 61% B, 20% A, and 14% C. Now, we both love Drummond and what he brings, don't we?
Yeah.
Without a doubt, best backup centre in the league. Could start on some teams. Could start on the Bulls team.
Most teams. Yeah.
You say that he could start, but as one of them comments says, his game doesn't suit the modern NBA, does it? What people are
No,
trying to
it
get.
doesn't.
You know, I mean, if you went through the list of NBA teams, where would he actually be a starter? You know, without him going back to Detroit, and even there, I don't think he'd get it. Maybe somewhere like Pelicans, he could be, especially with Valanciunas hitting free agency. But would he work along Zion, or is that too much beef in the paint? You know,
Too much chaos for one team.
yeah. You know, and obviously the point of what I'm just saying there is that he's a free agent, as far as we know. And this is kind of like what I said when we were speaking about the draft last week: is would you rather draft an unknown at 11? You know, whether it's Kyle Filipowski or whichever other bigs it is that are getting linked with that 11th pick, and pay him $5 million, or would you rather pay someone like Drummond $5 million and be able to draft somebody else? Now, personally, I'd say Drummond, because you know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
But
and that's both a positive and a negative.
yeah, but obviously we have seen how it works for the last 2 years, and he doesn't get anywhere near as minutes as he deserves.
That's it.
Sometimes gets more minutes than he deserves on the flip side of that. And he can earn probably more money elsewhere as well, if that's, you know, what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Obviously he has come out on times and said that he loves it in Chicago. I mean, obviously once he left Pistons, he become a bit of a journeyman, didn't he? And then Chicago's his longest stay since Pistons. So, you know, but obviously bringing him back is continuity, running it back, whatever you want to word it as.
Yeah.
And we want change.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Absolutely.
if you could change Vooch and bring Drummond back, that might please some fans. But, like I say, best backup big, personally wouldn't want to see him as a starter, I don't think. Not a Bulls anyway.
Yeah.
Or not with his team.
Now, that's maybe more to the point, actually. Yeah. It depends on what other changes are being made around him, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like I say, I like Drummond. If ideal world, if I could make the choice to keep Drummond as a backup big and trade out Vooch for some other more reliable big, that would be ideal world stuff. But I know that's not going to be very likely to happen. So what's going to happen is we're going to have to bring in some sort of new blood at the 5. And whether that's somebody through the draft or whether that's somebody through the trade moves. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, I'd like to see Drummond stay, but I think if Drummond stays, we're running the risk of getting closer and closer and closer to running it back. And I don't know how it's going to start to unfold if, you know, we start keeping Demar and we're keeping the rest of the starters, and then we're keeping Dre off the bench as our first player off the bench. Before you know it, without actually realizing it, you've made the decision that you've been saying you don't want AK to do, which is continuity, which is to keep things the same. Everybody wants change. There has to be somebody that has to go, or multiple players that have to go. And I do think Drummond is, by fair means or foul, I think Drummond is going to be one of the ones that walks out the door. I would pat him on the back and say thanks a million for everything you've done, because I've really enjoyed his tenure with the Bulls if he does go. And I hope he finds a team that he can go to and he can be as appreciated as I think he was by the vast majority of Bulls Nation.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, to be fair. I think, unfortunately for him, he is just stuck in that. A lot of teams are got the young centres in place.
Yeah.
And a lot of other teams have got the veterans in place that are playing the game how teams want it to be played. So he's got to find that perfect fit, which, like I say, I think is maybe why he did become a bit of a journeyman for a few years before settling in Chicago for a couple. And again, I mean, the thing is, what is he, 30, 31? Even though everyone thinks he's about 40.
Yeah.
So he's probably still got a good 5 years in front of him.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah.
And hopefully a team does do that, or Bulls move Vooch and keep him. But yeah, can't see that.
Well, we can live in hope.
So yeah, that is the grades for tonight. And obviously a little bit of a recap on the players from last season. And as promised, it is the highly anticipated return of Matt Vs Neill. Now, if you didn't listen to the ones last year, we did a best of 7, and I won in game 7, didn't I think?
Yeah. Took it to the wire.
A few sort of drafts that we do, snake draft. And the one tonight we're going to do is current NBA players, 25 or under.
Yes.
So no matter what age they are at the start of next season, as long as they are 25 or under, as of now, they can be included. We're going to pick one from each position. As usual, some might be combo guards, combo wings, whatever,
Or Alex Caruso, who can play 1 through 4 if he was 25.
And we're going to pick a 6th man as well. Just to thing it. Snake draft, and we've got a roll the dice sort of thing for that first pick.
Yes.
I think that's the rules covered.
Yeah. Before we get into it, though, as well, I'd just like to say that I'm trying to convince Matt to not only do a few more of these drafts for Matt versus Neill, but move into something a little bit more, I don't know, shall we say physical for a couple of rounds as well. So watch this space for that, because that could get really entertaining and quite fun to watch. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't going to be a weekly thing. They're just going to be a bit of a gap filler, and we'll keep track on it. The vote will be going out on Twitter, or you can drop a comment on here, and that'll be added into the vote as well. But yeah, I will let you roll the dice for that number 1 pick.
Okay, here we go. Spinning, and it's me. Now, as we found out last year, sometimes it's a bit of a poison pill going first.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. But oh man, it's hard to know who to go with first. I was like, this is going to be easy. I'm going first. And then I'm looking at my list and I'm like, oh, there's so many I don't want you to get. Okay. So I am going to go for the man of the moment. And I'm going to take my shooting guard. And I'm going to go with Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. He would have been my first pick as well. So, with my first pick then, I'm going to go away from the guard, and I'm going to go Wemby.
Yeah, he was one that I was, will I or won't I? Okay.
And so they were my first 2 choices anyway, so.
Right, okay. So, my next choice then, I'm going to go for my point guard.
Here we go.
And I'm going to take Luka Doncic.
Yeah, that's why I should have gone with my guards first. But
who is currently 25.
Yeah. Right. I will go with my point guard, and I will go Tyrese Halliburton.
Yep, he was second on my list for point guard as well. Okay, so I will go with my forward, and I'm going to go power forward, and I'm going to take Paolo Banchero.
Right. Right. I will go for mine, and I will go. What's to do here? For my power forward. Now this is where it gets tricky because he could play in either or position.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go Chet Holmgren.
Okay. Where are you going to play him?
Also at the 4.
At the 4. Okay.
He could obviously be at the centre as well, can he? But
yeah. Excuse me. Now. Do we have to complete our 5 before we go for the bench player? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right. In which case, I will go for my centre, and I'm going to take Nick Claxton.
How old is he?
25, I think.
I'd say he wasn't even on my list. Not where I thought you were going to go, to be honest. Right, I'm going to take my shooting guard, and I'm going to go SGA.
Yeah, I was surprised you hadn't taken him earlier, to be honest.
Yeah, I was waiting to see where you were going, and because you filled your guards out, I was like, oh, I'll take him now.
Yeah. So I've only got my small forward left, right?
Yeah, same as me. And this is where I struggle, to be fair.
Yeah, I was like, not sure which one to go with, but I think I'm going to go with Cade.
Yeah, see, I had him down as my guard.
Yeah, he's guard or small forward.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, should have been a Bulls legend, my German compatriot, Franz Wagner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in which case, I'm going for the bench player.
Yeah.
Now, I've 3 to choose from. I wasn't sure which way you'd go. But I think I'm going to have to go with Jason Tatum.
Is he not 26?
Is he? He was on my list of 25-year-old players. Hang on, let me pull this up. If he is 26, I'll have to change it, obviously. Jason Tatum. Oh, since March. You're right. Okay, so in which case I'm going to change it to a rather controversial choice. And I'm going to go Ja Morant.
Oh, he was on my list for guards as well, but I thought he's going to get himself in too much trouble. Right. I am going to go with another Grizzly.
Okay.
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Very good.
Yeah, there's a few other players. I really like Keldon Johnson. He was up there as one of my choices. But I don't think he's got enough of a reputation around the league to warrant a place.
Yeah.
Other good names, I think, were obviously Zion.
Yeah.
Alperen Sengun.
Yes. Yeah, I had him on my list.
I thought that's where you were going to go. Yeah. Jalen Duran. Said Zion, Keegan Murray.
Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah. Scotty Barnes, Thompson Twins, Brandon Miller, Jalen Green, Anthony Simons.
Yeah, Jalen Green I had down.
I was looking at LaMelo Ball as well, but he's only going to play 3 games, so
exactly he's always going to be broken. So
yeah,
we know what them balls are like.
So yeah, that was the first part of Matt versus Neill. Like I say, I will put it to a Twitter poll.
Yes.
when I get around to putting the teams out, and make the right choice.
Oh yeah, our listeners are educated basketball fans. They know which way to go.
Yeah, just don't believe the hype. That's all I'll say. But yeah, I've got nothing else. Don't know if you have.
I don't believe so.
But yeah, we will be back at some point next week. Any sort of breaking news, we will try and drop a video on YouTube, one of us, to cover that. So, like I say, if you haven't already, head over to YouTube and subscribe. Make sure you see the videos. We have started putting a few shorts on there as well, which you can always look at if you're bored. So, yeah, until next week, I've been Matt, and you can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you'll find me on Twitter at Neil UK. On behalf of both Matt and myself and the Fans First Sports Network, we do thank you once again for tuning in. From us both, do remember it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are. Until next time, see red people and go Bulls.